This episode is sponsored in part by our friends at VMware. Let's be honest, the past year has been far from easy due to, well, everything. Caused us to rush cloud migrations and digital transformation, which of course means long hours refactoring your apps, surprises on your cloud bill, misconfigurations, and headaches for everyone trying to manage disparate and fractured cloud environments. VMware has an answer for this. With VMware's multi-cloud solutions, organizations have the choice, speed, and control to migrate and optimize applications seamlessly without recoding, take the fastest path to modern infrastructure, and operate consistently across the data center, the edge, and any cloud. I urge you to take a look at vmware.com/go/multicloud. You know my opinions on multi-cloud by now, but there's a lot of stuff in here that works on any cloud. But don't take it from me. That's vmware.com/go/multicloud, all one word. And my thanks to them again for their sponsorship of my ridiculous nonsense. It's been 3 years since I've turned down an attractive job offer at AWS because of the required non-compete agreement. Frankly, I still don't have any regrets about the decision as Amazon piles on. Since I originally wrote about this in August of 2019, an awful lot has happened. AWS sued Brian Hall in 2020 under the auspices of his non-compete agreement. The Best of Amazon blind Twitter account posted the current non-compete agreement that Amazon still requires all US-based employees not located in California to sign. And I've been besieged with a number of questions about a variety of Amazon non-compete aspects that I have to assume are being asked in good faith, as well as a pile of additional data points about the non-compete being wielded against employees. Oh, right, and internships at Amazon come with a slightly modified form of the non-compete agreement that's only in effect for 9 months. Let me repeat that. Interns, as in still in school. One thing I got very wrong in my original post is that the 2019 lawsuit against the random sales schmoo was aimed at sending a message to Google, the schmoo's new employer. Far from it. The message was instead squarely aimed at Amazon's own employees. Are you sure you want to take a job elsewhere, knowing that we might come after you, is certainly an employee retention tool, but not one I would ever expect a company that fancies itself Earth's best employer to wield. Amazon's continued enforcement of the "but we never enforce these" non-competes. It turns out these clauses are very much not just enforced against senior leaders, as AWS folks told me to my face. A number of people I've spoken with have had the non-compete used to pressure them into rescinding job acceptances elsewhere. The existence of the Amazon non-compete often means that all it takes is a phone call from someone at Amazon to a company attempting to hire one of its employees, and there's suddenly a chilling effect that results in an offer being withdrawn. The reason that we only hear about these clauses affecting senior people is that it costs a fairly large pile of money to fight Amazon to the point that it goes to court. Think $100,000 in legal fees to start. The inherent expense of fighting non-competes to the point that they become public record further enforces the myth that Amazon only rarely enforces the agreement. Sure, it only rarely gets to the lawsuit stage. I have it on good authority that the non-compete is mentioned frequently to disgruntled employees looking to leave. It just takes a certain level of wealth and privilege to fight the issue to the point that it enters the public sphere. Fighting a lawsuit isn't just expensive. It also requires a certain amount of security and seniority to survive your former employer dragging you to court. For employees newer to the workforce, it's easier to capitulate than it is to fight these things. Hence the myth that Amazon only applies this clause against senior leaders. If that were true, why would AWS require, I repeat yet again, interns to sign it? This episode is sponsored in part by Liquibase. If you're anything like me, you've screwed up the database part of a deployment so severely that you've been banned from ever touching anything that remotely sounds like SQL at least 3 different companies. We've mostly got code deployments solved for, but when it comes to databases, we basically rely on desperate hope with a rollback plan of keeping our resumes up to date. It doesn't have to be that way. Meet Liquibase. It's both an open source project and a commercial offering. Liquibase lets you track, modify, and automate database schema changes across almost any database, with guardrails that ensure you'll still have a company left after you deploy the change. No matter where your database lives, Liquibase can help you solve your database deployment issues. Check them out today at liquibase.com. Offer does not apply to Route 53. This clause has also apparently been included in a pile of forms that employees are presented with on their first day of work, though there are reports that this is no longer the case. In other words, the first time many new recruits saw this clause was after they've already accepted an offer at AWS and shown up for orientation. At that point, not signing is no longer a viable choice for many folks. Without job security, well, what else am I going to do? Sets in. The time to consider a non-compete restriction like this is when you get an offer, not after you've already started the role. Let's also consider the ineluctable nature of the Amazon non-compete. While the agreement is scoped to things Amazon does about which the employee has confidential information, there's reportedly an awful lot of confidential info available to most employees via whatever internal wiki system they run over at Amazon. Are you prepared to prove that you never read anything about the upcoming Amazon Systems Manager Barking Manager when Amazon claims your new job at Twitter for Pets violates your non-compete? A number of employees sign under the belief that the clause isn't enforceable in their jurisdiction. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm certainly no attorney. But are you prepared to go all the way to court to prove the point when Amazon gets increasingly irritated with your departure? AWS isn't the only major tech player with a non-compete, but it is the most restrictive. Microsoft also has non-compete agreements. Though I dislike the concept as a whole, it's a lot more palatable to sign one that's scoped to Microsoft than it is one scoped to all of Amazon. Apparently, Microsoft and Amazon work out their non-compete differences behind closed doors due to the high level of employee transitions between the two companies. Google does not have non-compete agreements, which is apparently why we see lawsuits filed against former AWS employees who've gone to Google. In effect, Amazon is acting like your petty ex, and it's time to grow up. It's also worth noting that the Amazon non-compete doesn't just apply if you decide to quit your job and go work somewhere else. It's every bit as applicable if Amazon decides to fire you. You can get a new job elsewhere only to discover that though Amazon doesn't want you anymore, it definitely doesn't want anyone else to have you either. I'll repeat what I said 3 years ago. Amazon's non-compete clause is abusive to the brilliant people who work at AWS. Do better than this. Be better than this.
This has been a Humble Pod production. Stay humble.